Hey everybody, are you there? Had a power outage. Had to reboot here real quick, but I'm here. Hopefully you're there too. I got a message from Robert that he's here. Now, if you'll just let me know that you can see me, you can hear me, and all will be good. All right. Oh, wait, you can't see me. Now you should be able to see me, right? Okay, let's adjust that camera a little bit. I got my festive purple Christmas shirt on. Purple's kind of Christmassy, isn't it? My daughters bought this for me. They think I look good in purple. So, hello everybody. Glad that you're here. Robert, you can hear me, but not see me. Diane, hopefully you can see and hear me now. I got all signals go on my side. Anyone else out there, just send me a little text message saying that you see me, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, Robert, let me know. Thumbs up. We're A-okay. All right. Let's go over here to the slide presentation and start it off for our holiday presentation. Hopefully everyone has been enjoying the holidays. You know, one of the things that that people mistake or get a little stressed over is the wanting to be healthy, or maybe you're still in the weight loss portion of your health journey, and you're nervous about how you're going to celebrate the holidays without being able to eat any of the food. No one likes to sit in a corner, right? And so, well, that's what we're here for. That's what this week's program is about. A little bit of background about me. I'm a food scientist, newly converted 11 years ago. I specialize in the treatment of chronic disease and metabolic syndrome, which unfortunately most Americans have. And I work with doctors around the country. That's where we got our start, helping them implement a low insulin, ketogenic food eating program with their patients as an alternative to medication and operations. Have had great success with that. Just came back from visiting one of our clinics, in fact, in San Francisco this last week. And the reason why she got into the medical weight loss and chronic disease management by food and diet is because, well, these statistics, 80% of Americans, or nearly 80%, are overweight. 37% have high cholesterol, almost half have high blood pressure. An alarming, growing population of people are diabetic, type 2 mostly. And that's the forecasting of type 2 diabetes is just frightening, truly frightening. And then you've got fatty liver disease. And one that I need to put on this chart that's more prevalent than we'd like to admit is insulin resistance. New studies are showing that over half of the world, not just the United States, half of the world is insulin resistant. And that's kind of one of the main triggers. You've got insulin resistance first, then fatty liver disease, and then you've got overweight, and then you have high blood pressure, and all the other things cascade into it. And so this is why I focus on this, because it affects my family. It affected me. It affects maybe you. If you just go across your family and friends, they'll have 8 out of 10 of those people have at least one of these 4 things up here. And this is just 4 of the metabolic syndrome or chronic disease issues. This was me 12 years ago, or 11 years, almost 12 years ago now. I was 280 pounds. I wrestled 190 in college. So I was a bigger guy, but there was too much of me to love. I had all the symptoms. I had over 10 chronic issues: high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I was pre-diabetic. I had a terrible gastrointestinal issues. I was insulin resistant. I was hyperinsulinic. I was all of them. But in After 12 weeks, I didn't have any medication. I even did it without exercise because I know that most people won't exercise in the beginning. So I wanted to prove to myself and to others that it can be done. And so let me just have a disclaimer because we're going to go over some procedures, some actually how-to this week. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not your medical doctor. This information should only be used for informational purposes. Always, always consult your doctor when making any lifestyle change. And the content and examples shared are from personal stories that I get from our clients or from me, and I don't claim to cure any disease or ailment. All right, now that we got our legal staff completely satisfied and our disclaimer, let's talk about this holiday. Starting at about Halloween, if you're into that festive market, you're going to Halloween parties. Well, what do you always have at Halloween parties? You have costumes, right? But you have food and you have drink and you have partying and enjoying and talking and chatting. And well, we just got to face it. Festivities of eating is part of our culture. And then it goes right over from Halloween. We got to eat all the leftovers, right? And if we have more than one party, well, they're not all on Halloween. There'll be some a little bit before, and there'll be some a little bit after. There's a Halloween party at work. It just never stops. And then you have Thanksgiving, which we just finished up with. And then we have all those parties leading up to Christmas parties, family parties, friend parties. If you're in with your church, you've got religious parties. You have donation should I say charities. There's just parties everywhere, and all of them have food. And they're not going to have the foods that you want. Definitely not the foods that are going to keep your insulin levels low. Why? Because most people don't think that's fun. It doesn't taste as yummy. They just haven't been educated. So rather than try to fool or convert all of them over to your method, you got to figure out a way that you can eat and enjoy, not be a sore thumb, a wall child, I mixed metaphors, a wallflower, not eating in anything, refusing to eat any of the yummy funeral potatoes. Do you have funeral potatoes outside of Utah? They're kind of like, mashed potato or scallop potatoes mixed with sour cream and cheese, and then they're baked in the oven. We call them funeral potatoes, and they're delicious. But do you just say no to all of it? And then that affects your personality or your spirit, and people look at you like a sore thumb. Well, that's no fun. But the sad news is that over the holidays, the average American gains 5 to 10 pounds. And then we got to work from January 1 on to the spring to get rid of that weight. So how does weight gain occur? Is it because you're eating 3,500 extra calories, because that equals a pound of fat? If we measured the caloric value of fat, you will find that 1 pound of fat, if we carved it off our body, or even off a chicken or a cow, and then tested its caloric energy strength, there's 3,500 calories in that 1 pound. But does that mean that if you eat 3,500 calories extra, more than you normally eat, does that mean that you're going to gain a pound of fat? No, not necessarily at all. Especially, it really depends on where those 3,500 calories came from. Did they come from protein? Did they come from fats? And what kind of fats did they come from? And did they come from carbohydrates? And what kind of carbohydrates? Complex, sugars, and what was that ratio of all those three things? Rather than try to figure all that out, be sitting over there by the tray of food at Aunt Thelma's, trying to do the math, I'm going to go through and just help you with how to do it really easy and simple. Okay, so we already talked about all the holidays that we have. It's our most festive season this time of year. Let's talk about how to enjoy the holidays. I want you to enjoy it. You need to enjoy it without having an inappropriate relationship with food. We don't want you to develop these weird little food things. All food can be and should be enjoyed. So what is it that causes weight gain? Is it calories in, calories out? Is it a lack of exercise? Is it too much fat? Is it too many carbs? Is it too much protein? Is it the combination of this with that? I've talked about all these types of things. Bottom line, it is a hormonal gain. It boils down to insulin. Insulin is the reason why we can or we cannot gain weight. Period. End of story. And that includes muscle as well. All right. You have to have some insulin response by your pancreas in order to gain muscle mass. It's a growth hormone. Well, it also grow fat. So you got to be careful with that. So the culprit really is not carbohydrates of why we gain weight. It's not because of fat. It's not because of proteins. It's because of insulin. Now, a little bit of chemistry here. If we eat more, in this hand, if we eat more carbohydrates versus proteins in that dish that you just scooped up that Aunt Thelma's, you're going to have more insulin than you were if you just had the protein by itself. All right? It's just a chemical fact. That then sets you up to be in a position to gain the weight, to gain fat. Now, so when I talk about today about gaining weight, because we're not going to talk about building muscle, I'm going to be referring to gaining fat and losing fat. So when I say weight gain and weight loss, today we're only talking about fat, right? As part of that weight gain. So what we need to do is then figure out a way to be able to enjoy the foods that we're going to have, because I don't want you sitting in the corner, without having uncontrolled insulin levels, right? So just a little bit of math here, or a rule to stand by, that what happens is, I went through it a little bit, is when you eat any food, excluding fat, you have an insulin response. Your pancreas is going to say, I got to secrete some insulin. Even if you're fasting and not eating any food, your body, your liver is going to be producing some glucose, not a lot, not enough for you to gain weight. And because it's producing that glucose, you're going to be getting some insulin. Because remember, glucose is worthless to your cells unless there's insulin there as a key that connects and travels along with that glucose molecule to your cells and tells the cell, hey, I've got some energy for you. It's okay to open up. Let's receive this. Insulin is a pushing hormone. It pushes that glucose into the cells, all right? That's the way it's supposed to be. So don't worry if you're fasting and I just told you that your liver is always making some glucose. That doesn't mean that you're always going to be getting insulin at levels high enough to store or gain fat, gain weight, okay? That's just not the way it works, so don't worry about that. One thing is a general rule. It takes time for your body to take an energy source, let's say glucose, excess glucose, more glucose than you need, to convert that to a fat molecule. Yes, it can convert. It can change from glucose into a fat molecule. And indirectly, the same is true with proteins, but it really is breaking down into glucose and then it changes into fat. But I don't want to delve too deep into that. It takes time. Now, if you're sedentary, if you're already an obese individual, all right, let's say that you're morbidly obese, you're more than 100 pounds overweight, and you're sitting there, don't have any exercise at all, and your body can take excess glucose and convert it into fat as fast as 12 hours. Right? That's what studies show. However, if you're more active and you have you're not morbidly obese, you're just a little bit overweight, and you have some type of an exercise regimen, it can take as long as 96 hours for your body to convert that excess glucose into fat. Basically, what's happening here is because of your metabolic pathways, how you've chosen to eat for, let's say, 6 months, right? You've chosen to lower your insulin levels, and your body's more efficient of both secreting the amounts of insulin that it does, but also using the energies that it has available, the energy that you're getting from your food that you're eating, and the energy that it's getting to take stored food, stored fat, and break it down into energy to fill that gap in of what you're not eating. All right. How efficient that is will determine that time from 12 hours of fat conversion to 96 hours of fat conversion. So it can take half a day or several days in order to do that. That's one reason why a lower insulin producing diet, typically known as low carb, and some exercise, preferably HIIT exercising. Remember what that is? High intense for short bursts, 30 seconds burst, 1 minute burst, and then rest for 2 minutes. That's much more effective in the metabolic pathway of your body being set up to be able to delay how long it takes you to gain fat. This is an important element because it gives you time between eating at Aunt Thelma's and your next party, so that you have just set yourself up not to gain the weight that you ate at Aunt Thelma's. Because you're going to have some funeral potatoes, you're going to have some ice cream, you're going to have some pie, you're going to have some rolls, you're going to have some foods that are going to produce insulin in your body that you don't normally eat. Now, if you continue to eat that food throughout the holidays, that's every other day or a couple of times a week, I'm going to tell you that there isn't a program that's going to keep you maintaining your weight. Right? I'm talking about a few parties from here to New Year's, not one twice a week. Right? So let's get that out. This is not a license to be irresponsible. You got to be kind of, you got to have it together. Right? So I'm going to talk about the fundamentals of how I keep gaining weight during the holidays. In general, I'll lose some weight during the holidays. Right? So the 3 tricks that we go into are the 3B Plus capsules, the fat and carb blocker, the CMR meal replacement in the oil, and intermittent fasting. That's the tools that I use throughout the holidays to keep me from gaining weight and often losing a couple extra pounds during the holidays. All right. So that's the first cheater tool, if you will. How the 3B capsules work is they're a capsules that you take that will inhibit the digestion of the carbohydrates that you're going to eat and the fats that you're going to eat. 1 capsule will block 5 grams of fat, and 2 capsules will block most of the carbs in the food that you're going to eat during your eating cycle. An eating cycle is about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So that means if you're staying at Aunt Thelma's longer than 2 hours, I recommend that you take another capsule or another 2 capsules, depending on how much fat is in that food you're going to eat. Because what happens is you go there and you'll start eating some of the hors d'oeuvres before you actually sit down to the main meal, right? Well, you want to block those because there are things like cheese balls and crackers and fruit dips, vegetable dips, things like that, right? Maybe some punch. I recommend that you just stay away from the punch and the alcohol. If you feel you have to have the alcohol because that's just what you love to do, then choose those that have less of a sugar impact. Things like the darker wine, not the sweeter wines. If it's going to be a drink, a liquor, stay away from the beer. If you're going to go with a liquor, then have it be liquor, but not a mixed drink, not with fruit juices and syrups and things like that, right? Let's minimize it. But you have to take the capsule before you arrive at Aunt Thelma's. That means that you have to take it a minimum of 20, 25 minutes before you start nibbling on those hors d'oeuvres. If you're a type 1 or type 2 diabetic, I recommend that you do a little bit longer. I like 45 minutes before you arrive, just because you need a little bit more of a head start with those that are diabetic, of blocking the carbs and the fats. So again, before you arrive, take your blockers. If you're going to be there eating longer than 2 hours, then have some in your pocket and just drop another 1 or 2 to keep it in your system. Because remember, it does not enter your tissue, and it's not like pain medication that can last for 4 hours. It is something that just stays with the food and blocks it through your digestive channel. And as it moves from your stomach into your intestines, the blockers go with it. It doesn't stay in your stomach or your intestines blocking. It moves right along with it. So if you're going to introduce new food, you got to introduce the blockers along with it, right? That's the first tidbit of information. The next is we're going to talk about the intermittent fasting, all right? If you know that you're going to go, this is what I'll generally do is I usually do a 16-8 intermittent fast 5 days a week anyway. So if I know that I'm having a party on the weekend, because Saturday and Sunday is when I don't do intermittent fasting, that's when I do eat breakfast, because you can't fast, intermittent fast 7 days a week. You shouldn't even do more than 6 days. I do only 5. I got to have that breakfast in the morning. Then I'll be fasting the day of the party. So if I know that the party's going to be on a weekend, which is normally when I'm eating breakfast, I'll just change my intermittent fasting earlier in the week so that I change it up a little. I change my days up a little bit so that I am intermittent fasting on the day of and the day after my party. And I'll explain more details of why that is a little bit. But just as a reminder of what a 16-8 intermittent fasting is, all that means, don't make it more confusing than it needs to be. 16 hours of not eating, 8 hours of eating. So that means that if you're going to, you don't eat anything past 8 o'clock, and then the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning, that's 12 hours, right? And then you go for another 4. So what's 8 to 4? There's noon, excuse me. So you have your lunch. Your first meal of the day is lunchtime. And you can have breakfast if you want. That's okay. And let's face it, breakfast is good all 24 hours a day. It's the only meal that you can eat universally, right? So eat your normal amount or caloric total that you eat. When you're not intermittent fasting, you're just eating the meals a little bit closer together. Now, if you're not hungry, then don't eat. Don't force the food down you. Just go and eat from noon to 8 o'clock. That's a 16-hour fast. That's all that 16-8 means. Okay, and half of that fast is when you're sleeping, so it's a lot easier than you think. So here's the benefits. We're going to go over just some points of the benefits of intermittent fasting in case you've forgotten. It stabilizes your insulin levels, right? It can actually be that by itself can reverse or prevent diabetes, type 2 diabetes, from ever entering your life. That's what we're really going after. This is why I insert the intermittent fasting into my holiday eating, is for not the caloric, not because I got to make up for the calories I just overindulged in the night before, right? No, your body doesn't count calories. It's all because of insulin. That's why you intermittent fast in the holiday, right? 2, it actually gives you more energy. Now, why does it give you more energy? It doesn't make any sense. You're not bringing in any food, and food is what gives us energy. So if I don't have it, why would I have more? Because it actually makes you more efficient in burning stored fat. And your body can only process mass and matter in a certain amount of time. So if you have a gram of carbohydrate or a gram of protein, they're worth 4 calories apiece. 1 gram, 4 calories. Fat, on the other hand, it has 1 gram and it gives you 9 calories. So it's 2.5 times more energy dense with the same amount of mass weight that you're consuming. And your body lasts longer on that energy. You don't have to replenish it. And so it's a much more efficient, longer last, and that's why you have more energy. You don't have those peaks and valleys that you get with a carbohydrate or even a protein. Your triglycerides will lower. Great studies are coming out that it's a wonderful Alzheimer's prevention tool. More and more science is coming out saying that they want to call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes, which I actually don't like, because diabetes has to do with glucose. Diabetes is not a glucose disease. It's an insulin disease. So they should call it, insulin of the brain or something. That's what the primary cause of Alzheimer's is, the cascading, a flooding of insulin on our brain cells constantly. And basically being starved of glucose because the insulin is not able to deliver the glucose to the brain anymore. The brain needs energy, and if you're not in a ketogenic protocol, you're not producing enough ketones, and your brain can run off both of them. And so they're actually doing studies showing that they're having some reversal effects in people that already have Alzheimer's early onset, that those symptoms can be mitigated or reversed in the beginning of the symptom if they go on a ketogenic diet. So the ketones is what's feeding the brain. Great science. Matter of fact, if you have a loved one that is kind of getting off topic a little bit, but it's important, so I'm going to say it. If you have a loved one that is suffering from Alzheimer's or early onset dementia, then get them on a ketogenic diet. Just that's the best thing you can do for them, more than any other medicine that's out there that they've discovered. If they refuse, because sometimes they're not as coherent as they should be, that's why they have Alzheimer's, then what's the next best thing? If you can't get them to follow a ketogenic diet because they want to have their cake and eat it too, then give them BHB, give them ketones in their diet. Just mix it in their drink. Flood that brain with ketones. It will help balance out the brain's inability to process that glucose, because the insulin has blocked and created those little blockages in the brain. And since the brain's starving of energy and not able to cognitively do its functions, the ketones are there to fill that gap. So if that's the last resort, that's not going to stop it, but at least it will help them through that time with great success. 90% of the patients experience benefits if you just take ketones, if you can't get them to follow a ketogenic diet. Fourth issue, it literally stops your sugar craving. So if you're one of those people that just absolutely it's like a devil on your shoulder, intermittent fasting will turn that right around. It boosts your growth hormone. You don't have to take shots. You don't have to go down to the bodybuilder's gym to get growth hormone. Your body will produce it for you in higher numbers when you are fasting, especially if you work out while you're fasting. Okay, women, the studies have shown that if they work out while they're fasting, their growth hormone can increase by 1,300%, and men can increase from 18 to 2,100% if they work out while fasting. Now, when I say work out, we're talking about a resistance type exercise, resistance bands, resistance against gravity, or weights. Okay, go to failure. The sixth issue is it dramatically reduces the risk of chronic disease, obesity, and a great way to lose extra stored fat. 7, it reduces free radicals. We all hear the negative things about free radical damage to our cells. It is a great way to get rid of loose skin, but you gotta fast for at least 12 hours or beyond 12 hours, because autophagy, that's where you can get rid of the wrinkles in your skin and saggy skin on your chin or on your arm arms, or if you've lost a lot of weight and you have some on your belly, what's a great way other than liposuction and cutting all that excess skin away? Autophagy. It's a natural liposuction of your body, but you got to fast for a minimum of 12 hours. The longer, the better for autophagy purposes. And the last one is better brain health. We talked about the benefits that it had against fighting Alzheimer's. So that's the reasons why you want to do that. There's a lot of other studies that show that it can help with a lot of different diseases, like Parkinson's disease. And so these are good things. You see in the movies, actors will talk about how they'll gain weight or they're heavy and then they'll lose the weight for their role that they're going to play. How do they do it? They do this diet. The one I'm telling you, they use intermittent fasting, low carb. That's the one. No one strays from that. It's endorsed by a lot of doctors, more and more all the time. That's where we got our start, working with doctors, and more are coming on board. And they found that because cancer can only use, or most cancer, there are a couple of cancers that can use ketones as an energy source, but all the rest use glucose as an energy source. So if you reduce the amount of insulin, if you do some intermittent fasting, it actually will starve out cancer cells and slows their growth, or they can die completely. So there's different types of fast. I'm just going to go quickly through this. I have in our library more detail about the different types of fast. There's weekly intermittent fasting. Well, you fast one entire day, 24 hours. You have, it doesn't matter the day of the week, just the one that's easy. You have alternating fasting where you fast every other day. And then you have the daily fast or extended daily fast where you'll fast for several days. And then you have the one that I'm talking about, which is a 16-8, 5 days a week maximum. So let me give you some example. I've never been much of a fasting lover. When I grew up in our religion, we fast at least once a month. Typically they would abstain from food and water, and that's what just killed me, man. I get headaches, I was grumpy, everybody had terrible breath. And, when you came back from church, it was for dinner, everyone was just, you don't even talk to them until after dinner, right? Because they're just ornery, food is flying everywhere, they're just eating like wild wolves, right? And so a lot of people, when they think of fasting, they think of starvation. And that's not what intermittent fasting is. It's just, first off, you got to drink your water and you got to take trace minerals. If you're only doing intermittent fasting or 1 day fast, then salt's enough, right? But if you're going to do more than that, and then you're going to do like what I do, which is intermittent fasting 5 days a week, you got to add some of the other trace minerals. An electrolyte, that's all electrolytes are, is just getting you those trace minerals that you need. And you've heard me talk about the science of why. I won't go into it now. Just trust me, your body needs more when you're first off, in a ketogenic diet, but also in a fasting state, your body needs more minerals. So fast, but with water, fast from food. One of our clients, 55-year-old guy, he said that he's never fasted more than 24 hours. And he was at a plateau, so we had him do a scheduled, well-monitored fast. Fasted for, first he fasted for 3 days. He thought that was just unbelievable. He couldn't believe it. Then he fasted for 9 days. Now, I'm not telling you, don't go out and do that right now. That's not what we're talking about. We slowly got to that point, right? Women, one of our 37-year-old women, she just said, no, not for me. I'm not going to do it. I mean, was just adamant about it. And after they saw the results, they heard the science, they were impressed, they thought they'd try it. Okay, so you can have keto coffee if you want. Just pull out the fat from that. Can't have any fat if you're fasting, right? But you can put some other supplements in it if you like, or just coffee. You can have herbal tea. Water is what I like. The benefits that you get is that you're really not hungry What if you start, you haven't been fasting, you'll be a little bit hungry for the first couple of times that you've done it, but after that, it goes away. You get tons of energy, you'll lose inches and lose your weight. You don't think about food as much as you think, and you'll love the way that you feel, right? If you've seen our program before, here's just a program of my wife. She was not a faster. She was one of those people that said, I fast rarely, and I don't like it. I don't feel good. I get sick. I get headaches. It's just awful. Well, she fasted intermittently. She didn't fast for a month. It says here started last year at this time on the 15th of December and went till January. She did not fast for 30 days. All right. She was doing intermittent fasting. And look at these abs that are showing up. You can really clearly see even the definition in her shoulders. She changed nothing else. It was just that. So it can really be highly, highly effective. Back to that 55-year-old man and the 37-year-old woman on the right. The woman did a 36-hour fast. She did that for 2 weeks, meaning that she did in 36-hour fasting 1 day a week for 2 weeks. She did it 2 times, right? She lost 10 pounds. Now, she was already on the ketogenic program, our program, but she just reached kind of a plateau. And then she went on a vacation right after and didn't gain any weight. Pretty awesome, right? She said she felt fantastic. The guy, the stubborn man, 55-year-old guy, he was on a plateau, was not breaking. He broke his plateau, lost 13 pounds in 3 days. He fasted for 3 days the first time. Then we took a break. Then he fasted for 4 days. And then we took a break. And then he fasted for 5. And then he took a break. And then he fasted for 7. So we did this over the course of a few months. But he commented on his huge energy. So don't be afraid of fasting. All right. It's a great, great tool for accomplishing what you want to have done. So what I want you to do is when you go to Aunt Thelma's, you take the carb blockers before you attend. I generally will take 3 because I want to block a little bit more of the fats that are there. Now, why are we blocking the fats? Jason, the program is all about a fat program. So why do you block the fats? Because most of the fats that are there, most of the fats that are used to cook the food are omega-6. And it's not that omega-6 is evil. It's kind of like a carbohydrate. It's not the carbs are evil or that omega-6 is evil. It's that we get too much of this thing that causes the problem. We're already getting 23 times more omega-6 than we're supposed to have. So I want to block it so that you can supplement with the oil that I told you about in our omega oil that has 2.5 times more omega-3 than omega-6. That helps balance out the imbalance of too much omega-6 that you're already getting. So we block the fats that are the fats that we don't want. Not that fat is bad. Fat is absolutely essential. In fact, our diet, if you count the calories that are where those calories are coming from, we're a 60 to 75% of your calories are coming from fats, right? So we're not a low-fat diet. The science does not support that philosophy. So take the carb blocker, the fat blocker, before you go to Aunt Thelma's, at least 25 minutes before you start. Unless you're a diabetic, take it 45 minutes. And then if you're going to eat for more than 2 hours, take a couple of more capsules and you'll be good through that eating cycle. When you break your fast, let's say, let me go through after we leave Aunt Thelma's. So we're leaving Aunt Thelma's. It's at night. We go to bed. We wake up. We don't eat. We fast till noon. All right. Let's say that you were eating up to 10 o'clock at night, beyond the 8 o'clock hour. So all you do is just you extend. In the previous example of the 16-8, I said you eat at noon. Well, if you're eating at 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock at night and then you go home, well, then just extend it. Still give me that 16 hours of not eating any food. You need that time frame. It's not the hour on the clock. It's the number of abstinence from food that makes the intermittent fasting work. So if you, let's say, if you continue to eat up till 10 o'clock or drink 10 o'clock at night, then you eat at 2 o'clock. If you're eating till midnight, then you fast till 4 o'clock and then have your first meal at 4 o'clock. Do that for 2 to 3 days after Aunt Thelma's feast, right? Then you're ready to go for your regular living or your next party, right? Because what that does is that your body can only store fat in the presence of insulin, right? If you're intermittent fasting, that's going to give your body time where your insulin levels have just dropped way, way low and your glucagon levels have increased. Glucagon then will kick on your ketosis. So you're getting plenty of energy from your ketones. You're actually burning that excess storage of fat and you're burning off the glycogen, or should I say the glucose that you ate from, the funeral potatoes. But you gotta give your body time to do it. Now, if you're gonna throw in some exercise in there, fantastic. Throw that in there. You'll just burn off that glucose a little bit faster, that excess amount. Remember, glucose that does not have a place to go, meaning your body doesn't need the energy right now, is going to get stored for later use if there's insulin that's present. So if you remove the insulin, then that molecule, that glucose, is going to be burned off because glucagon's going to say, no, I want to burn it. I don't want to store it. It's going to do the opposite of what insulin's going to do. So now that we're going to eat our food, let's say it's 4 o'clock because you ate or drank till midnight. 4 o'clock the next day, we're going to eat. You're going to sit down and have turkey and Thanksgiving and ham and potatoes. And no, don't do that. That will make you feel yucky. Your body does not want to eat a heavy meal. If you are very sensitive digestion, I mean, you get stomach aches really easy. If you fast and then you eat a heavy meal, when I say heavy in fats, heavy in carbs, heavy in those two elements, then it's going to be harder for your body to be able to break it down. One of the reasons, because the lining in your stomach, the mucosal layer, has diminished because you don't have any food in there, right? So it's going to get thinner and thinner if it's going to be there at all. And you don't want to put those heavy foods on there or it'll give you a stomach ache, right? And it takes longer for it to digest. So if you have really, really sensitive stomach, then I recommend 2 hours before you eat. So in our example, at 2 o'clock, because you're going to eat at 4, take 2 tablespoons of MCT oil, medium chain triglyceride. Go to your health food store, get the coconut oil that's clear and liquid. Don't get the solid one, right? Because that's only about 30 to 50% MCT. But if you get the liquid one, it's 100% MCT. That actually will really kick up your stomach to make that lining back on your stomach again. Then when you eat, I recommend, what's the best thing? Have the CMR, have the shakes. It's not going to be heavy. Have your normal, put your oil in there, put your 2 scoops in there, put some almond milk in there if you want. Just make sure it's unsweetened and have that be your meal. Do that for, 1 to 3 days. That will then prime you up to be able to eat those solid foods without any of the discomforts after. And also, it's keeping your insulin levels low for 2 or 3 festivities. You've been there and you've enjoyed Aunt Thelma's famous food or grandma's, great mashed potatoes, right? So the CMR is the first meal with the omega oil. Let me add in, I heard a little bit of someone say that they're getting enough fat that's in the in the almond milk to satisfy their fat needs. No, that is absolutely incorrect. First, for a couple of reasons. One, the ratio remember the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. We're already getting 23 times too much omega-3 than we are getting omega-6. Too much omega-6 to omega-3, right? The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in almond milk is 1,927 times, not 23, almost 2,000 times higher than omega-3. Virtually there's no omega-3 in almond milk. So the fat you're getting in almond milk is all the wrong kind as far as ratio is concerned. You're already getting too much omega-6. Why would you up it by 2,000 times more? Not a good idea, okay? The other reason why that's not a good idea is because it's too little. There's only, depending on the milk you get, there's only 1.5 grams of fat in a serving, and that's 8 ounces. It's not enough. If you're supposed to be getting 65 to 70% of your calories from fat, well, 1.5 grams from the almond milk is not enough, all right? That's a low-fat, low-carb diet, and the studies show they don't work. Stop doing it. It's not a good idea. Take your CMR, take your oil, the 2 pumps per shake, unless you found that the higher pumps makes you feel better. All right, cleared that up. So there is a good way. Bad way is those heavy foods, high starches, high carb. Definitely don't go back and pile up on the homemade spaghetti sauce and French fries and potatoes and breads. Go when you do start eating solid foods, just eat your leafy green vegetables. Go ahead and have some nuts. Have your meat, have your eggs, have your avocado, have your CMR shake, have your omega oil. Those type of things are going to be much easier on your after and in between party meal. So now you've heard me talk a lot about how we're using intermittent fasting. So should I do it every day? I said in the beginning, I only do it 5 days. You should not do it every day. Don't do it every day. If you do, your metabolism will drop. A study done by University of Virginia School of Medicine did a study, and they concluded that you should not fast every single day. It's bad for you. One of the reasons why is your cortisol levels increase by 50%. All right. If you, after about a month of fasting, intermittent fasting, or not fasting all day long, just intermittent fasting, after about a month, your cortisol levels increase. Now that's the stress, the fight or flight hormone. That's the one that plays a part along with insulin to store more body fat. You can't burn as much stored body fat if your cortisol levels are high. Also, you have more anxiety. So you want to keep your cortisol levels lower. And if you remember, we have that natural ashwagandha that we put right in the meal replacement shakes that have been proven to drop your cortisol levels by 40%. So if you're already lower insulin producing, that's going to lower it. Then we lower it again by another 40%. That's awesome. That's great. Your stomach acid, the study found, drops by significantly, almost 4 times. And that was part of the chemicals that are used to break that food down. That's one of the reasons why you aren't able to digest as many foods over a period of time if you continue to fast every single day in intermittent fasting. But the big reason why is your strength will drop. The study found out that they took men that were the same weight, in this example, 158 pounds, and one was on 1,571 calories. The other one was fasted every day, was roughly about 2,300 calories. But after 6 months, they found that they were the same weight. Their metabolic burn rate, not their caloric intake, their burn rate of the man on the left that was only fasting 5 days a week, he had 33% body fat, where the man that fasted every single day had higher body fat at 45%. So his body was only burning 1,200 calories, where the guy that was eating they were eating the same food, the same diet, the same number of calories. But what happens is that the body regulates and says, you're fasting me every single day. I need to turn down the furnace. I need to turn down how many calories I'm burning. And they actually gained more body fat. That's terrible. Don't want to do it. So you'll get weaker, you'll lose muscle tissue, and you'll put on more fat if you intermittent fast every day. Just do it 5 days a week. You're fine. Okay. So that's it. Don't do any more than that. Does fasting really matter that much? Another study, you know, I like to brag about studies. Here's another study of the Journal of Transitional Medicine. Had two groups, 64 men total. They fasted for 8 weeks. One did a 16-hour fast, 3 meals. They ate at 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 8 p.m. The other group did an 8-hour fast. So they fasted half as often. So basically, they just went to bed, didn't eat when they were sleeping, woke up and had breakfast. So they ate at 8, they had their lunch, and then had their dinner. They all worked out. Or should I say, they all ate the same calories and the same type of foods. Okay, very controlled study, and they worked out, but they worked out with a coach. It was supervised. They could only work out between 4 and 8 o'clock in the daytime or afternoon, and they could only work out 3 times a week. And they did all resistance training, so they just couldn't do any workout. Right, very, very controlled. So the study found the difference that the group that fasted for 16 hours, eating the same caloric value of food, okay, lost 6% body fat, more than the 8-hour group, and they lost 8% of the fat that they had. So they improved their triglyceride levels, so that went down, and that is a great study that shows that doing a longer fast less often is better than doing a short fast every single day. Okay, so how do you keep from gaining weight during the holidays? How do you want to keep from gaining 10 pounds during the holidays? Lower your insulin. Take the blockers before your holiday meal, and intermittent fast for 16 hours the next day. And then when you go to break the fast, take the CMR oil, shake and oil, and that's your healthy Christmas gift. Merry Christmas. I hope everyone found some benefits and value out of this. This will be recorded for any of you who want to send this on. This is how we keep our weight off during the holidays and how thousands of our patients do so. So Merry Christmas. Thank you. And till next week.